Alrighty, g'day Hexes, welcome to the stream, and if you're watching on YouTube, well, hello as well. But yeah, so we got some new players now thanks to Steam, so I thought I'd do a video here to give you some really basic tips to help you get into deck building. So some really, just because a lot of players, will be not scared of deck building, but find it daunting. And really, it's deck building is really not something that's complicated, and you can start from you start from a small this one card and then you build from there. But we're going to first go over some very basic tips that pretty much everyone should know. Nice one, 8 PM. I was talking about draft there because that's what they were talking about. But so yeah, let's get into the very basic tips first. So first we're going to look at the deck size. Now, when you're playing Hex, the first thing you need to know is that in limited, which is your draft and sealed type formats, where you only need to use a minimum of 40 cards. In constructed, however, you need to use a minimum of 60 cards, and both of these numbers there do include your resources. And you should always stick to the minimum. You shouldn't be going over it because then you're just diluting your deck. You want to keep it. You have a goal in mind for your deck, and you want to get to these certain cards. The more things you're putting in there, the less likely you're going to get to specific cards. So you want to stick to those minimum numbers pretty much at all times. There's really no reasons that you should really ever go over those minimum numbers. So 60 for constructed and 40 for limited. So that's the deck size itself. So if you are just getting into that, if you've just downloaded the game on Steam and you're jumping into a draft, just make sure that you build. Again, that these includes your resources, so you're going to have, which we'll get into now, the next slide here, which is basically, how many resources should you be using in these size decks, and the standard amount of resources that you should use in any deck is 40%. Now that's your starting point. Now every player, when it comes to limited, every player is different because every player will draft differently. So one player may take a lot of high cost cards, whereas another player may stick to more of the low cost troops, like maybe they're taking mostly 3-drops. In that case, if I'm the player which will take mostly 3-drops, I'll take a decent amount of 4s, maybe a couple 5s, and that way I've got a deck where I'm generally always going to be able to play things, even if I'm do get stuck or what have you. It also generally will mean I can run less shards because the less shards you have, the more things you get to play. So the standard resource amount for limited, it's still 40%, regardless if you're limited or constructed. But limited, as people in the chat were just saying that most of them will play with say 17. But again, it depends on your style of drafting and what you've actually drafted for that draft. So in one draft, you may not get as many low-cost troops as you would like. Maybe you don't get many 1s and 2s, you get mostly 3s and then a lot of 4s, and so then you're like, you know what, I don't want to risk it, let's go with 17 shards. So you're just going slightly over that 40%. Really, there's no reason not to do 17. It's not like you're going to get super flooded just because of one extra shard. So if you want to play it safe, by all means, that's up to you, that's up to the player. But again, it's always your curve is always going to dictate what is necessary. So, for example, if I'm running a deck with like 4 1-drops, 6 2-drops, 7 3-drops, and then whatever else, mix of the other, that's a very low cost, very very aggressive style. You're playing things nearly probably every turn. That's where I would generally stick to that 16. But yeah, so and as it says there. An aggressive deck with lots of low-cost cards will normally use 30 to 35%. That's normally when you're looking at constructed, because now when it comes to limited, you're not building the deck as you want it, so you can't just decide, I'm going to have all these 1-drops, I'm going to have all these. You're not going to get that consistent type of deck as you will in constructed, obviously, because you get what you're given. You still may get very very aggressive deck, but you're probably going to want to do more than those numbers, right? You're going to want to probably do no less than, say, 15 shards. I would probably still. It all depends, of course, though. But 15 shards in a limited aggressive deck, you probably don't want to go lower than that because you're just not going to have that consistency that you're going to get with an aggressive constructed deck that you've built to how you want it to run. You decide all these, all the cards that go into it. So yeah, you have to take into account the format, obviously, but that's for constructed. you know, if you're building the deck as you want it, you can get away with numbers like 30 to 35% shards. So then, you know, and this here applies also to limited here. A slower deck with several high cost cards will generally use anywhere from 40% to 45%. So yeah, let's now get into the client itself, and we'll talk a bit more about, you know, getting started with deck building. So first I'm going to just start up a new deck here, and I'm going to cover some just very basic topics first. So let me close this PowerPoint there. But yes, if you are wanting to download HEX, just get it through Steam. Just look up HEX on Steam and bada bing, bada boom. So here we are. This is the card manager, and this is where you can, you know, build your decks. It's the same look. If you're playing in limited or whatever, you're going to still have this same look and feel. So, you know, one thing that HEX does differently from other card games when it comes to your resources is that we have thresholds, and these are requirements that are on cards. So let me pick out a troop here. Like, here's a Zentos Inquisitor, pretty sweet troop. Has a double blood threshold here, and it says here the threshold